Welcome to Chasing Aesthetics, where fitness meets science.
Now that we address all the things that we need to know about the recovery diet, I would like to hear some guidelines from you.
Yeah. So I guess to kick things off, how much we recover, how much we have to recover from, obviously it's going to matter. It's going to differ from person to person. But one of your goals when you are dieting and you're getting into contest shape is to, over time, learn to make it so that it damages you less and less every time. And I think sometimes when you tell people that, like when I tell people that it's a priority with my athletes, it's like, not only do I want to get you there, but I want to keep you as safe as I can. I think people right away assume like, oh, well, he's not going to get me to my full potential. But it's like, no, in reality, it's like a body that you hurt less is going to be able to go further. Like no different than a power lifter. If you mess up a limb on a power lifter, they're just not going to be as strong and they're not going to be able to, hit the peak levels that they would have been had they been injury free. So the same thing with bodybuilding is like the safer you keep the system, the more it's going to cooperate and you can be able to push harder. So hopefully with every prep, there's less damage to fix. That's the goal. And you'll see that, if you treat your body well, it's going to treat you well and it's going to let you go a little bit further every time. So, so anyone who maybe this is like their first time prepping or they're in the middle of it and they're like, man, I'm so messed up. I think over time, it just gets easier, like psychologically speaking, it does. You learn to kind of consolidate things, but also as you continue with this, your system gets better and you learn better ways to get there. So every prep gets easier in regards to that. But still, regardless, even if you did really well, you're messed up at the end. There's no way around that. If you're not messed up, you just didn't come in shape, right? So you're messed up. We need to fix this. Gaining weight is going to be the main driver to fix everything. And what we recommend, generally speaking, anywhere between, we'll say 4 to 6 weeks, you want to gain the 8 to 12% above your contest weight. And we prefer people definitely track in a way that's probably a little bit more similar to their off-season tracking. So, maybe in the off-season, they kind of hit calories, they track calories, and they track protein. It's like, if that's what you did, we're going to do that, but with the new numbers that are appropriate. And almost right away, I think we try to include a lot of those things that were maybe part of your off-season, ritual. So if maybe Friday you had some wine with your significant other, it's like we want to bring all those things back, the family dinners, all that stuff, and make it part of the system. But we do want to keep some structure. So during this time is when you will experience the surplus. It is like the biggest surplus that you will have during your whole off season. It's in the beginning. And after that, over time, we'll start using something that's a little bit more along the lines of what makes sense in the long run. Something like a surplus. It's, anywhere between 100 something calories above maintenance, But initially, the numbers, like they're kind of crazy because the surpluses will be somewhere around like 800 to like 1,200 calories above maintenance. But what this does is obviously it makes you gain weight. And a lot of those binge episodes that people experience post-contest, they tend to go away like big time. So we have much less of those emails where the client's like, I literally ate every box of cereal in my house and then I went to go buy some more. So that's, I think, the biggest thing is like I see a whole lot less of that. Obviously, a little bit still happens, but when that does happen, we just tell the athlete, hey, take an amnesia pill. It never happened. Get back on what you were doing. But that's basically, it's a surplus, something that resembles your off season in terms of the system used. It's the biggest surplus you'll experience during your whole off season. And we want 8 to 12% of your body weight regained in 4 to 6 weeks. Some people a little bit more, some people a little bit less, but somewhere around there.
Got it. Yeah. And I think that what you said is really important. And that's one of the main benefits of this kind of diet. Because when you are in a surplus, when you finish your contest prep, those cravings go away because you are eating way more. And that's what I experienced. For example, you don't really crave going to McDonald's or having a lot of cereals. You don't crave that because you are having way more calories than you were in your contest prep. And that's
And the binge episodes, like it's a lot less of that. I've seen so much less of that, way less, and that's important. That's really important.
Yeah, that's really important because if you don't have that, you are like more focused on your progress that will happen later. So that's a good point of the recovery diet. So and now just to finish, what would be like the proper structure to the recovery diet?
So I think one thing that I hinted at that it's super important. So when it comes to deciding that you want to prep, I don't think people should prep to just get into shape. It's like sometimes that's how it is. It's like, people scroll through Instagram. They're like, I've yet to have that year in the gym where I felt super productive. I know what I'm going to do. I'm going to like do a show and that's going to force me to get into some really good shape. I think that's a bad idea. And I feel that before someone decides to compete, what they should do is gotten in shape a few times, like just for themselves, just for the summer, right? Just for their vacation, and have developed all these habits that, to other people might seem a little crazy. Like sometimes I've been doing this for so long that sometimes people, they're like, wow, you're so good about how you're eating. I'm like, oh, really? It's like, I don't even notice it because it's just part of my culture at this point, But you want to develop all those things, make those things habits so that worst case, because no one, even with like a recovery diet system, which I think is better than the previous systems, you're going to slip every once in a while. Like it's going to happen. And it's always nice when like you slipping is just like these off-season habits that are really good. So I think biggest thing is how successful your recovery phase is going to go post-show. It's going to be highly dependent on what your habits look like prior to that show. Because think about like how hard everything was when you first started bodybuilding. Like I remember, to me, it was so stressing. I was like, wow, I have to eat protein like 5 times a day. This is so crazy. I just want to be a normal person. And now it's just what I do. So I think before you diet, I think those habits should be in place, and it's going to enhance whatever system you decide to use. But yeah, big surplus, obviously, post-show. And then also, I think what I would also recommend people do is cardio goes away. So cardio is done, or cardio goes back to what it was in the off season. So like if you worked an office job and in order to not gain too quickly, maybe you did 3 cardio sessions a week in the off season. Go back to that and get rid of all the excess. And then on the training side, as discussed earlier, it's like we're pretty messed up in many cases. So I would probably bring someone's volume down to what is like their minimum dosage to progress. And what usually happens is like we make some really crazy progress just because a lot of it's recovering, old muscle and, old neurological things. But it's because, again, like your body's, there's so many things that it wants to get to outside of just your bench press because a lot of things are messed up. So if you throw in more training stress, it kind of takes away from what you're trying to do with this food to begin with. So cardio and training, I think, must also be taken into consideration when designing the plan.
Yeah, so you will like stay at that MEV that they say nowadays, right? Mm-hmm. Like just the minimum, because I think that the post competition is like one of the scenarios where most bodybuilders get injured because they are like, oh my god, I have more food now, I'm recovered, but now your joints are not really recovered and they're not ready to be hitting the PRs that you were hitting in the off season because you've been prepping like 2 weeks ago. So that's not a good way to approach it. And I agree.
Well, and I think regardless if you did well or maybe you didn't do as well as you wanted, everyone ends their prep in a way and they're motivated to get back in there and crush it.
Yeah.
And sometimes if you really want to crush it, the best thing to do is that first month is like, hey, let's chill out a little bit, which is hard. It's very hard to do.
And I've seen some athletes doing like a full rest week after the prep. I don't really like that, but what do you think about it?
I think in the past, I would have been like, no, don't do that. Um, I think, yeah, there was a time where it's like we would insist that like, yeah, you train afterwards, and that like no vacations. Whereas like now, if someone told me like I don't want to train the week after because I'm going on vacation, I'd be like, that might be good for you, man. You're going to come back and you're going to be motivated, a little bit of weight gain, but that's fine. So training at the week after, it's kind of up to the person. I don't think there's a right or wrong there. I think more experienced bodybuilders will probably, because they can push harder, obviously, they can probably benefit from taking a week off, you know? But for the new person, maybe not. Maybe they don't need it as much, but also it might not be good for them because they're still trying to get, a lot of these things are still trying to become habits, you know? So like for me, yeah, the week after my show, I think I trained once. That was
Yeah.
exactly what I needed. And the day that I had was just an arm day, you know?
Yeah, I mean, for example, I train like 3 days, but I train the exercises that I really like, and I
Mm-hmm.
was wanting to push harder in the prep. And I think that you need to, I mean, that's not losing time because you need to look that in a long run, and at least it will be 1 year of improving season.
Agreed.
I don't like that off season term because it's not off, to be honest. It's like the most important season is the off season. So.
Yeah. Yeah. That one does not make sense because off season was something like with athletes that get paid where it's like they were playing and then they went on vacation. It's like, no,
Yeah.
no, no. Like, Euro shows one in the off season, 100%.
Yeah, like Kevin LeRoy, for example, that he stopped training and he was like playing music with his band. Yeah, yeah, yeah. So I think that's a good way to. Would you add something to summarize it, or I think we covered pretty much all?
Mm. Um, again, I think the biggest thing is I think for me, it took 8 years to decide I was going to compete. I started to lift weights when I was 16, and obviously I was playing other sports initially, so that I couldn't really dedicate myself purely to bodybuilding. But once sports were over, I was like 20. I didn't get on stage until I was like 23 because I wanted it to look right. And I think at the end, this helped me a lot because, again, my friends, my usual friends, already kind of thought I was a freak with the habits. You know, it's like Friday night, you're going to the gym instead of going out with us. Yeah, it's what I love to do. So I would just recommend that anyone who wants to compete is to just really make sure they've done this long enough to the point where they really love it. Like it's not a punishment. It's like again, it becomes like part of your culture, pretty much. You know, how we eat, how we train, what we think of, what we keep up to date with. That's where you want to be. And I think if you take 3 years of good lifting, and out of those 3 years, maybe we'll say 80% of it was like not fat loss, you're in a good position to start your prep.
Yeah, I've seen your graphic of off season and cutting phases, and that's really a good reference to see how really the improvement goes, because that's not always being shredded for the summer. You need to look at it at the long run and take in consideration that it takes a lot of time. And also I think myself that to prep for a contest is not for everyone, because it's not easy to handle that, because when it's like when it's like 7 or 8 weeks out, that's not easy, and most people would really fail in that prep. So
Yeah. No, I think Helms has said it many times, Eric Helms, that I think we spent almost just as much time convincing people like why they shouldn't compete, than anything else.
yeah.
So yeah, learn a lot about it. Read the Minnesota starvation experiment.
You really feel what they feel, and you will be exactly like them. So yeah.
Exactly. Yeah. Oh, it's crazy, man. It's so close to what a prep is. It's kind of scary.
Yeah, every time that I enter the prep, I read a little bit of the Minnesota study, and I was like, oh my god, yes, this is gonna be real. So that's it. Okay, so I think that's it. I need to thank you so much for coming today for podcast, And yeah, that's it, Alberto. Where can people find you on social media? Where can people get your coaching, or tell us a little bit about it?
Yeah, so 3dmusclejourney.com. Like through that website, you'll be able to find everything, like from blog posts that go back many years. We have a lot of quality guest writers in there as well, so not just us coaches. Our podcast is also on there. And like through there, you'll find us in other platforms like YouTube. We have, quite a few good things on YouTube. The podcast is on YouTube too. I personally tend to be the most active on Instagram, as it's just the platform that's been easiest for me to use and navigate through. But yeah. And I still consider myself as much of an athlete as a coach. So I try to show people that I practice what I preach and that I love what I preach, which I do just as much as when I was 16. To this day, I love it just as much, and I think about it every day.
Yeah. And I think that Alberto is like a good reference to have, because he's been in this game for a long time. And that's it. Natural bodybuilding is not easy, and you need to keep consistent on that. So Alberto is like the good example for that. So that's it. Thank you so much, Alberto.
Thank you.
Don't forget to rate the podcast on iTunes and leave a review. May the aesthetics be with you.